This is KCCK's Culture Crawl. I'm Dennis Green, and my guests today are from the upcoming production of Cedar Rapids Opera Theater outdoors on the Peggy Whitworth stage at Bruce Moore of South Pacific. Say hi to Jack Cotterell, who plays Lieutenant Cable. Jack.
Hi.
And to Jessica Kasinski, who plays Bloody Mary.
Good morning.
Thanks so much for coming.
Of course.
So before we talk specifically about the show, tell me a little bit about, the Opera Theater auditions and cast people from all over the country. So some performers are from the region, others are not. So tell me a little bit about your background and journey that brings you to this point. Jack, you want to start?
Absolutely. So I'm a Minnesota native, but I've spent the last 12 years in Chicago. I was an educator for a bit and I burned out, and I've just been performing, singing and dancing and acting only when I have to. I saw a notice online of Cedar Rapids auditioning in Chicago last fall. And I figured, what the heck? And I applied, and they offered me a spot to audition. They invited me out in January to do chorus in La Traviata.
Oh, okay. So you're back.
Mm-hmm. I'm back. Yeah, this is a lovely place to be, and all the smells. And I also did the outreach production of Pinocchio. We went to 9 different elementary schools and then also performed down in Coralville. Sorry, 8 schools, the library, and then also in Coralville.
Oh, so you're practically a native.
Yeah, at this point.
So you know where the speed cameras are.
Exactly. I didn't get any tickets last trip, so yeah.
Jessica, how about you?
Sure. I'm from Wisconsin originally. Spent some time out in Philadelphia, obtaining my first 2 degrees. Went to Florida State University for my master's, and now I'm back finishing my doctorate in musical arts at the University of Wisconsin-Madison.
All right. Mm-hmm. And as I said, the show is South Pacific, and of course, the musical South Pacific, famous Broadway musical. Mm-hmm. Movie based on the actual writings of the author James Michener. Mm-hmm. So many of the characters are based, in fact, but carries with it a little bit of extra baggage these days.
Yes.
That, as I said before we started rolling today, that the last time I interviewed somebody who was doing South Pacific didn't come up at all, but it is a part of it now. And in fact, there was even a little bit of a panel discussion on the issue of race in the musical. So tell me a little bit about, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about what happened at the panel, or maybe let's start with when you first got the script, or, and realized you were going to be doing this and kind of viewed it through a modern lens. What did you think? Jessica?
Well, for me to play a character that I am not short, squat, or oriental, or yellow in any fashion, which are all descriptives that have been given in the script, I thought that it would be my duty, and I did my due diligence to read the source material that Jack then provided me, and some other material about women who would be like Bloody Mary, women who were conscripted or taken or held slaves. She was originally from Tonkin, which is, of course, North Vietnam, taken to the island by French planters and then used forever until she ran out of life, I guess, in servitude. So a woman like that who would have been able to break free, to make her own money, to become a successful businesswoman, and then even more successful with the onslaught of U.S. military and then later on New Zealanders and other servicemen. I thought it would be the most respectful way to approach the character from that more so feminist perspective, rather than I'm a Polish woman playing a Tonkinese woman. So in my mind, it really didn't come up. The relationship that she has with Lieutenant Cable is one that I know from my grandfather's experience in the service, that he would have developed, and she would have developed with him, because it would have been necessary, and it would have gone beyond the race and separation and distinction, more so to humanity. These are 2 people who are completely out of place, that don't have their family with them, that have needs, and whether it be bartering or finding romance, which is the polite way to put what I do with my daughter. It would have been necessary, I think. So I'm approaching Bloody Mary from that perspective. I want to present her as a strong woman who sees things, observes things, and tries to fix things and make well for herself, her people, and her daughter.
It'd be very easy to just fall back into the caricatures that people have played the role in.
It would be. And with the movie being as popular as it was, and resurgences in 2008 of the musical, I'm sure the character will be presented in a little bit of a caricature, but it's my duty to bring a little bit more to that.
Well, and also, of course, the original, it's through the lens of the original writer narrator.
Exactly.
That was how he perceived.
Which is something that we need
people.
to keep in mind and keep in perspective, is that they're telling an overriding story. The overarching story is the one that you have to deal with your own racism. And Lieutenant Cable sings "You have to be carefully taught," which I think is the larger story, larger narrative. So if there's a character or two that gets lost in the crossfire, being Billis is quite a caricature himself, and Bloody Mary, then so be it, so that the overall message is able to be presented.
Jack, sounds like you did quite a bit of research heading into this to think about how to do your role of Lieutenant Cable.
Yeah, we mentioned in the reception room, I've got a list of dream roles that I want to sing, and, I'm always willing to just go wherever the work goes, but Cable's been on that list for a while. And, I knew the show, I'd seen the movie, I've seen clips of stage productions. There's a 2001 production of like Glenn Close and Harry Connick Jr. Out there somewhere floating. Cable was just an interesting character because, I knew his numbers, I knew his overall story arc, but I didn't know how to reconcile the different pieces of it. And so I did a lot of this research to try to really find a way to empathize with this character and understand him and where he was coming from. And things change from the original source material to the book that Josh Logan and Oscar Hammerstein II ended up writing. And, when you do the musical, the libretto is sacred. You have to respect exactly what, they give you in that book. But there's so much more to Lieutenant Cable's character. He comes from money. He was Princeton educated before he enlisted. And he served on the front lines in Guadalcanal. And, the fighting in the Pacific Theater in particular was very intense in World War II. And so intense that Marines often referred to those that served on the front lines in the Pacific Theater as the word they used was Asiatic, which was a particular type of eccentricity that these Marines developed, where they were just sort of aloof or despondent. They'd be miles away, even though they were in the same room, maybe holding a conversation, because the fighting was so intense on the front lines with the Japanese. They were truly a committed and fanatical enemy. And so, Cable is, in this show, where Cable's character lies, he's on break between battles. He's fought in Guadal, and he's now on leave or on, a rest period before he goes back to the front lines. But he's also, in the libretto, then been selected to go on this basically suicide mission. He's been handpicked from his group, apparently, to do this. And so, he's caught in this kind of limbo where he needs to go back to the front lines, and while he's there he befriends Bloody Mary, and Bloody Mary wants to introduce him to her daughter because she thinks they would be a good match, and he goes through this whole struggle of trying to reconcile the way he feels towards Liat, and eventually in the show he has this moment of redemption leading up into You've Got to Be Carefully Taught, where he really says, this is racism and prejudice and stereotype are all things that we learn and are taught, and he kind of faces that demon. And what's interesting is in the original book, he does not get that redemption. Cable does not get that redemption in the original book. He gets one last chance from Bloody Mary to marry Liat, and he says, Bloody Mary, I can't. And then the very next day he ships off, and he dies the day after that when they land and they begin their next assault. But in the show, Logan and Hammerstein, they adapted it so that you do get to see that story arc come around full circle. And Cable does get his redemption in the musical. And once you do that research, you can kind of figure out how that happens in their head.
Well, it is interesting that the Logan and Hammerstein were sensitive to that 65, almost 70 years ago.
Very prescient. Yeah.
This was something that they had thought about. Talking with Jack and Jessica about South Pacific coming up the weekend of the 16th, 17th, and 18th. Yes,
correct. And 19th.
And 19th. And we'll tell you how to get tickets and everything in just a minute. Okay, we've dealt with some pretty heavy concepts here, but what most people remember about South Pacific is that it's a fun show, and it's the music. And so, what is your Jessica? What's your favorite musical moment in the show?
In the show, oh right. Well, for me, I will always and forever love Some Enchanted Evening, though I will never sing it. It's just so amazing. And the structure of the piece, you can actually feel Emil falling in love as he's singing it. What I most enjoy singing is Belly High, of course. It's just epic and just beautiful. And I hope I seduce Jack enough that he decides to come to the island. So
Very seductive.
yes. It's just wonderful. All the music is wonderful.
Jack, what's your favorite moment?
Besides, of course, the material that the tenor sings, I'm obligated to answer with that. Some Enchanted Evening was going to be my answer as well. I will never forget one of the first times I heard that piece of music. A dear friend of mine was singing it in a workshop setting at DePaul, where I did my undergrad. And when I hear that music start in the show, I'm kind of getting ready, because Cable doesn't come on for another couple of scenes, but I get weepy right away, because like Jessica said, you can hear musically and dramatically how this character is falling in love. And, it's just like, when I was doing my acting training for singing, it's like you sing because you can't just speak a thing. And, that's one of those perfect moments, when you see someone and you fall in love with them at first sight. And I really do think that's a real thing. That kind of music just pops into your head. Mm-hmm. And, that's so special that, throughout the show you get so many great musical numbers that really just kind of embody the spirit of the moment for those characters, and they're catchy tunes as well. So, yeah.
And of course, some lighter moments too. Watch that man right out on hair.
Absolutely.
Nothing like a dame.
Yep.
Songs.
Billis's little burlesque dance in the second act. Yeah.
The show is South Pacific. It's the weekend of the 16th of June, outdoors at the Peggy Whitworth stage at Bruce Moore in Cedar Rapids, the Cedar Rapids Opera Theater. If you'd like tickets, you can visit the Cedar Rapids Opera Theater website. Do you know what that is off the top of your head?
They'll actually link you to the Bruce Moore website, brucemore.org. That's where you're going to get your tickets. You're actually going to get it through their website. Yeah.
Okay. And croperatheater.org if you'd like more information about the show.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks so much for coming in, Jessica. Jack, great to meet you.
Nice to meet you, too.
Enjoy the run, and we'll make sure we hold off the rain.
Yes,
please.
absolutely, and bring your bug spray. Well, you already know, so never mind.
Well, it could feel like a tropical island, but that'll just add to the ambiance.
Yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.